Okay, so I don't think I could do you justice, Penny, if I was to introduce you myself. So I'm just going to get straight on into it and welcome you to the show. Hello.
Hello,
How are you?
hello. I'm all right, thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us. I think a good place to start is if you could just explain to us what you do, who you are, and those sorts of things so we get a little bit of a picture of everything that you do.
Yeah, no problem. So my day job, I am head at Newark College and the Aerospace Institute, so I work for the Lincoln College Group, and I've always worked with young people in some form, in different ways through education. And what my role is now is to lead the curriculum, to lead the colleges, to see how we can improve people's lives further, and we do that in a huge range of ways, not just around the curriculum. Outside of college, I've run a Brownie group for the last 25 years, so really invested in working with young people from young ages, especially the reason I chose Brownies is to empower girls, especially. I also have a role in Scouts in an international capacity. And I do a lot of work within the community in the village that we live to bring people together. I'm very much a huge fan of social activity, huge social eating. Eating usually brings people together in some form, and everything we do regarding anything usually involves cake and it brings people out. So I find food is a really good target to get people together in some way.
Yeah. So currently, with your role, can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of the types of things that you're doing around learning and those sorts of things?
Yes, obviously, as a college, we have a curriculum we have to follow, which has to meet an awarding body criteria. But there's so many other huge impacts that take part in a young person's life around personal social development. And we do that in lots of different ways. The community that we've created at college is very much a culture of kindness and care, but it's also around anticipating and understanding how young people live. And the area that I work in is classed through the government statistics as one of the most deprived areas in the country. So we recognise that young people are having different ways of living to people who might live in other areas of the country. So what we try to do is encourage them to come to college in different ways, but we provide that warm feeling when they come in. So we provide access to knowing that the college system is similar to the school system where young people can apply for free school meals. We have free college meals, but it's done in a slightly different way, and there's a huge amount of paperwork to fill in once you get to 16. So we have a very low uptake in that for various different reasons through parental support, through parents not having the right documentation. Often parents, if they can't read and write, find the forms really difficult to fill in. So as a college, we can support that. But often young people don't want to have to access that system once they get to 16. So we try to do it in different ways. So all our, if they're eligible for it, it's all logged onto their student card, which they can just scan like a credit card. So we've tried to impact that fear or embarrassment of whatever that is of having free meals, to try and understand they can have anything they want from the canteen through that process. But also what we've done is, because that's means tested, we recognise there's a lot of people who aren't eligible for that funding, or parents are on the borderline of the funding element, so we class that across the working poor element of people that are eligible for that. But how do we impact young people in being eligible for good food that impacts learning in a free way? So we operate at college our own food bank. It's a free food bank and it's non-means tested, so students can access that at any time of the day, lunch, breakfast and dinner, and they can take food away with them in a, we call it a grab bag. So they have a meal to take home with them, and the idea is that they follow a recipe and cook it for their family in a social eating way. But in college, they can have breakfast and lunch whenever they want to.
I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. And I guess I've got a couple of questions that lead off from that. First off, do other colleges do this?
So there's a nationwide project called Good for Me, Good for FE that colleges are involved in. We're certainly a very active college across that, and we do that at Lincoln at our campus there as well. We do it across both of all our three sites of Lincoln College. And what we recognise there is through the social value factor of impacting not just through food, but also through physical exercise and volunteering, those elements of different ways that it empowers a young person and a member of staff as an adult to have a different outlook on life, on empowerment, on the skills that it gives them to do their job, but also the enjoyment that working with other people can give. So there's lots of benefits that we find as a college that we're given to support things like volunteering, and also through physical exercise, we're provided with those opportunities. And we also then provide that for our students. Having it at different sites means we have different activities because it's all about being student led and what the students would like to do.
You mentioned two things, fear and embarrassment. I'm sure there are other barriers to kids, young adults taking up what you do. So across the time that you've done it, how has that uptake changed and what's, I guess, impacted on that change? Because I'm guessing it's gone up.
Yeah, hugely. And I think when I first started doing this, I'm going back probably 7 years ago now, when I was actually in the classroom as a teacher, and I trialled this as part of a master's I was doing in the impact that food had on learning. And at the time, I worked with young people who'd not engaged with education, who were what we call NEET, so not in employment, education or training, and they'd generally been maybe excluded from school, not gone to school for so many different ways. And college is always that huge, massive second chance for young people to learn vocationally, because they're usually brilliant with hands-on learning, and we learn in very much different ways at college to how we do at schools. So we see that opportunity to engage young people. And what I recognised was through young people, once they walk into school on their own, they generally have a can of an energy drink and a bar of cheap chocolate in their hand because they've been up till 4 in the morning on their PlayStation or whatever, Xbox, whatever it is now. And we wanted to change that culture of how they saw food, but also how they saw their own health and well-being. And if our role as a college is to prepare young people for work, are we really doing that by accepting those behaviours? So I changed those behaviours and trialled it in the classroom. And I would meet them at the door at 9 o'clock, and I would take their energy drink out of my hand and tell them to go and make a cup of tea. Obviously, I wasn't over popular to start with, but they soon got used to it. And they had two options. They either drank it quickly before they came in, or they just didn't bring it in. And that's what tended to happen, because what they then quite liked was the social aspect of it. So what we did was around the first 25 minutes of the lesson was always around social chatting. And what we built into that was some current affairs work. So they had to come in with a news story that could be local, international, national. It just got them thinking about the world in different ways and understanding and talking through things that were happening in current affairs. So they would come in and they would make themselves a drink, and they would have some toast and yogurt and fruit. Now, some of those young people, and this is what always never ceases to amaze me, some young people had never had yogurt before. So eating
Really?
yogurt in the morning was really, really strange to them. And also eating in front of other people was really difficult for some young people. So we had to do a lot of work to allow them to be able to take part in that session, to be able to eat in front of people. Yeah,
Sorry,
sorry.
I need to jump in because that is so interesting, because I'm imagining that this would overlay into the home as well. Just that whole notion of
Yeah,
social, eating with your family, not
yeah,
having had yogurt, not, I don't know. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount, when I did my research, the amount of young people that ate and I don't know what to describe them as, burgers in a box, burgers in a microwave box, or hot dogs in a microwave box. And it horrified me when we actually then looked at how much fat was in them, how much sugar was in them, how much salt was in them, and how little energy it was giving these young people. So to try and allow them to support eating in different ways was really, really important. And what was really interesting is when they had exams, we extended it a little bit. So I'd do bacon sandwiches or sausage sandwiches for them. And we do some halloumi for the vegetarians. And what that brought in was not only the lovely smells across college, it brought in all their friends, because their friends would come to the door and say, "Can I come in and wait here for my exam?" So suddenly I'd have about 50 students in the classroom. And it really, really showed, not only through just that eating impact, but it showed that when you've got them in a classroom together before a GCSE exam, for example, you've got a real opportunity to make change, because you've got an opportunity to calm them down. They forget forget that they've got an exam because they're chatting, there's a bit of music on in the background, there's a lot of hustle and bustle. They're not able to be anxious. But what you're able to do is support them to make sure they've got everything they need for their exam. Because remember, some of these young people haven't taken exams before, so it's a whole new ball game going into a hall to take an exam of something that you've not been confident in doing before. So we could get them ready. We made sure they had a pen or a protractor if it was their maths or GCSE. But what it did was allowed us all to go into the exam together, and it went in much calmer nature. And what we found through that we'd never thought or realised before was there was so much less anxiety going into classrooms to do exams than there had been previously when you're expecting young people to stand outside a building and wait for half an hour. So that was when I was in the classroom. So when I then got this job of leading the college, I impacted that much more. And I didn't just go from one job to the other. I went through a different set of roles before I did that. But what that allowed me to do was open that a lot more open to the whole college. So certainly, not only in addition to the non-means tested food bank in front of every exams, we have a quiet chilled out area where students can go and sit. They can mix together. They can talk, they can listen to music, they can do nothing, they can do whatever they like, but there's always food there. And the food that they have is something like porridge, because we know that that has a lasting impact on learning and it keeps them a little bit more alert. But what it does is put them in that really good frame of mind before they go into an exam. And that was the whole intention around that.
Did So when you first started taking those energy drinks out of their hand, I'm just imagining one of my children's faces as you did that to him. Did they notice the change because of what you were doing? Or do you know what I mean? Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't initially. They didn't initially. But actually, what was really interesting from the data that we provided, and not just in my group, some other colleagues trialled it as well. What we noticed that once they'd had that first sort of 25 minutes of chatting, good talk, the work that was produced in the next hour was absolutely it was so high level that we'd not really seen that before. They were motivated, they were dedicated, they were able to concentrate in a really, really clear way that they hadn't been able to do before. And what they then saw was the output that they did. Me as a teacher, I was having to plan loads more because suddenly they were getting through everything much quicker, but to a much higher standard, as I say. What was then really, really noticeable was they'd come back after break and be okay, but after lunch, you'd have to start all over again. And it was really really interesting the level of food impact it had for a certain amount of time to then have to repeat that over lunchtime. So one of the things that I did was and I use the word campaign, and it wasn't really a campaign, to have energy drinks removed out of the vending machines we had then at college, because it's really easy for us to trial this in the classroom. But if we're then, as a college, saying, but you can go and buy one at break time or lunchtime, we're not really setting about what our intentions were. So I was definitely Wicked Witch of the West when that happened across college. But that's okay. I was cool with that because they had other options to drinks. And what we then started doing as a college was providing every student with a water bottle, a college branded water bottle that they could then have access to, because we've got access to fresh water wherever they go. And again, they can access at the food bank, they can access hot drinks there. So they can access tea, coffee and hot chocolate. So they also have cuppa soups and that kind of thing. So there's always something they can have as opposed to an energy drink. So we actually then, that turned out to us getting rid of vending machines completely across college, because
Really?
we recognised that the food sold in vending machines aren't always the most healthy. Yes.
Wow. So energy drinks, you've mentioned that. And obviously it's really interesting that the kids that were coming in, you knew that that's what they were consuming. What other changes in terms of food patterns did you sort of see, implement, notice differences in behaviour?
So what we did a huge campaign once we started the food bank, and we did this probably about 6 years ago now, and then we did it through COVID as well. What we did was recognise that over the holiday times, we don't close as a college like schools. We stay open throughout, but children, young people don't generally come into college when they don't have to, unless they've got an assignment they haven't done. But what we then did through the holidays was gave them holiday packs. So recognising that some of our young people, and again, this is no means tested, this is about knowing your students and understanding their home life and knowing their circumstances. At 16, we have a lot of young people who don't live with their families, who don't live with two parents. Some parents are at work all the time, and some live independently, and some are looking after young children and siblings. So it's really important that we recognise that huge, massive range of different people that we have in a further education college post 16. So this was very available for everybody. So what we did was provide a holiday pack. So we provided 5 days worth of food that they could cook for different meals. And again, we always provide a recipe for it, and we always provide sessions beforehand so they know how to cook things. But what we did on this one was provide costs against everything. So where we use huge amount of fresh vegetables for everything, some of them had never tried things like peppers before, courgettes, because they didn't know how to cook them. They didn't know what they would taste like, but equally they're very expensive when you're on a really, really strict budget. And again, you can buy a savour meal in a packet really, really cheaply compared to why would you buy, you can get 3 of those as the price of a pack of 3 peppers. So sometimes it's about understanding the cost value and how they can cook themselves very, very cheaply. So once they recognised they could buy some of these ingredients and use them in so many different ways, they were really surprised how cheap food was. And what we asked them to do was cook for a family of 4. The meals all provided a family of 4. Now, that ranged from things like sausage and mash to jacket potatoes to sandwiches for lunch to porridge for breakfast to fresh fruit for breakfast, including all those fresh vegetables that they would have in something like a spaghetti bolognese, something like that. And what we asked them to do was cook for a family member or a friend and give us some feedback. And what we saw from that was just that, honestly, it was amazing, but some of it was really heartbreaking when they'd say things like, I'd never cooked for anybody before. I didn't think they'd like it. I've never sat and had a meal with my mum before. I can't believe it was so easy to cook. And what we worked on then after that 5-day plan was just how they were going to then use their money to create those foods again. So it's all about just that holding hand journey for some people, really, because they've not had that education in whatever form they've had, whether that be school or home. So
Was
we
there a,
continued.
sorry, I'm
Yeah.
really interested. Was there a gender difference?
Uh, Interestingly, more boys took the uptake on it.
Really?
Yeah. And a lot of the girls were used to cooking it because stereotypically they would have probably done food technology at school
Okay.
as an option. But boys really, really had the biggest impact on this project because it's not something they would do in the homes that they lived in.
I wish you lived closer to where my children are in education. I mean, it's just fascinating, isn't it, that you recognize that something was amiss, that something could be changed. And that I love the fact that obviously the kids that you had contact with are recognizing it as well. So
Yeah.
I guess food impacts on, if you had to sum it up, the impact that food has on learning. I know that's probably really hard to do, but
The food impact has on learning was really, really from a concentration point of view, that it allowed young people to be able to think and not be distracted from the ingredients that are in things such as energy drinks or having nothing because they're hungry and they don't recognise hunger in that way. And half of them are exhausted because of their home lives of, Xbox, social life, whatever they're doing. And we've all been there where we've come into work really, really tired, but doing it on a regular basis becomes really difficult for them.
no.
So it had a really, really different impact on their outlook, but also on just the way that they would change their lives. I think it's really important as well to say we work with some really, really close partners through this as well, because as a college we support the food bank by paying for it, but obviously we don't have the funds to provide
Hmm.
everybody everything. We're not a registered food bank because young people are not eligible to use a food bank till they're 18. So there's a really,
Okay.
really mismatch between young people who are 16 to 18 needing food. So we work with really key partners, and our local council is really, really good. Newark and Sherwood District Council at supporting us, but also people like Fair Share. We buy into Fair Share, where food waste is recognised, but
Hmm.
also working with people, really, really fascinating people. There's a lady called Dr. Martha Smith, who's at Nottingham University, who has done a huge amount of research into this, who supported us through this project. And then there's a company called Waste Not that's run by a lady called Josh. And together we worked on a huge project where we recognised that working with local people, working with local allotment growers who grow massive amount of extra food. I have requested more carrots rather than courgettes because those
I've got
marrows are
courgettes.
massive. And students are really, really scared by a huge marrow, bizarrely. But we've done a huge amount of work, and a couple of years ago, we'd through the project of all the work that they do behind the scenes to make these things happen, we'd created across the East Midlands 5 million meals that would have otherwise gone to waste.
Wow.
So that was a
I have,
huge milestone in the project.
yeah, massively. And I think it's amazing that you have got those partners that you work with. I've got another question that's probably quite random, but I'm really interested from obviously some of those young adults have now left college. Do you have any contact with them? Do you know if they've continued to use your good ways of eating better?
Yeah, that's a really difficult one. So yeah, we do see some students out and about, and generally when they've got children, it's really interesting to see how they're bringing their children up
Hmm.
and what they've remembered and what they've learned from college. They all remember that I took energy drinks off them. That is the first thing they all remember. But what they do remember is just college being, and I think it's really difficult to articulate that as a
Mm.
16-year-old, but what they do remember is college being a place where they were welcomed, where they felt safe, and where they were able to learn in different ways. So if we think back to young people who've not had yogurt before or not been able to eat in front of people, um, I know that that person that couldn't eat in front of people now gladly goes to a restaurant and doesn't think twice about it. So
Mm.
they're all the things that I would class within the education system as the hidden curriculum, because they're not judged by any awarding body. They don't come in a criteria. They're not judged by Ofsted. But what they are, they're impacting people's lives. And that's what education is about.
And I think it's so often missed, and possibly we're going off topic there. But yeah, I think it's a massive part, that whole social side of
Yeah,
things that,
yeah.
a college or a school perhaps doesn't look at enough, but that's going off topic. So I
Yeah.
guess what I'm intrigued, or what I'd like to ask you about, is obviously your role is in with an education system. If you were to give, because a lot of parents listen to the podcast, if you could give some advice to sort of overlay it, what could some of the parents who are stressed out, think they're bad at getting good food on the table, what would you say to them to sort of try and help them feel better about what they're trying to do?
So I think if I put my brownie head on now, when we take the girls away on pack holiday, parents often say to us, "Oh, they don't like this, they don't like that, they won't eat this." Well, I tell you what, they eat anything when they're away, and they try anything. So all those parents that say to me, "Oh, they'll never eat scrambled egg," well, I tell you what, they're having seconds when they're away, because there's not a lot of choice, and I think that's sometimes one of the problems. And I'm guilty of it for my children and my grandchildren. When you're at home, there's loads of choice, isn't there? When you only have one choice, and that might be a cooked breakfast, for example, or cereal, they'll all try something. And when
Hmm.
their friends are trying it and eating it, they all do the same. So I think it's really hard as a parent, I get that. But I've had a lot of experience of working with with 7 and 8, 9 year olds, but also post 16, who say, just try it. It's not going to hurt you. I wouldn't give you anything. And that again comes to trust, doesn't it? Which they will
Hmm.
their parents. Just try it. If you don't like it, that's fine. But at least you've tried it. The other thing I would say through any meals that we cook, put lots of vegetables in it because they don't know they're eating it.
Oh.
You know, they don't like carrots, but they'll eat it if it's in a meal. They don't like peas, but they'll eat it if it's on the side of the plate and there's a little bit of tomato sauce with it. You know, I'm not opposed to those kind of things, but I think just trial and test and get them to try different things, because that is the most important thing. Then they recognise they do like it, and parents are always really surprised when you say, "No, they ate everything. They didn't leave anything."
It is, but it's so true, isn't it? Because I think there's certain pressures that you feel as a
Yeah,
parent when you're
yeah,
sat there going, why won't you eat that? Just,
yeah,
and you're right, take them away from that situation. And
yeah,
they're
yeah,
looking
hmm,
around, seeing everyone else eating it, then
yeah,
I think that's brilliant.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess another question I've got, Penny, in terms of the energy drinks have gone, they're still not there?
No,
Okay.
no, they will
What's
not be back.
ever?
No, not if I
Uh,
have my way. Not while I'm there.
Yeah. And what's next, do you think, in terms of what you want to do in terms of this area? Is there something that's next?
Yeah, so as one of the roles I have outside of college is, I'm chair on the board of it's called For Your Neighbourhood Plan. It's a government incentive around recognising that high streets have changed, that the social value and fabric of high streets have changed, recognising people that shop in different ways. So where I work in Newark, we've been one of the towns that have been given a sum of money to bring people into towns in different ways, and that's not going to be through shops coming back in, because that's not the way that the high street's going. But it's about the impact of having community, learning and living within your local
Hmm.
town. So what we're trialling this summer, and this is where our students get really involved in different things, and we talk about our students volunteering and having those employability skills. And what it does is make young people take ownership of their town, and that's really, really important. So what we are doing, and I've had for the last couple of years, is a beach built in the town centre. But what we're doing this year is having a 2-week food festival with it. So we are trialling this as well, it better work because we're doing it again in October for anybody that wants to come. It will work,
It
and
will.
we'll just learn from it and develop it. That's what we'll do. So for 2 weeks, an amazing lady called Helen Ellison has put together this food festival, and she is a huge advocate for community learning, and we work really, really closely together. So what she has done is put a range of activities together. We have a really local chef who lives around the corner from me, who we've persuaded to come and help us. So Jason from Burnt Toast, thank you very
Hmm.
much. He will be on stage demoing everything that's happening. And what we're trying to get people to do is learn to cook in different ways. But also what Helen will do through this project is look at ways of how you can create your own vegetables, how you can grow your own vegetables, but also recycling and composting, which comes into those huge factors of the way that sustainability we need to be impacting. So during that 2-week period, there'll be demos again from people like Jason and other chefs, but also what should we be doing is, and I want to say in the nicest possible ways, how do you make your packed lunch more interesting?
Mm.
There's those kind of activities happening. How do you make sandwiches more fun? And how can you grow your own vegetables to then give children that opportunity to change their eating habits by eating something that they've grown? So that's a 2-week festival that is happening starting on the 2nd of August in Newark.
I'm
So
coming.
anybody, it's free, completely free. All of it is free. The beach is free. The food festival is free. And then we're going to recreate it at October half term, where we have more of a Christmas theme.
It's really interesting. Some of the things that you've just said are things that we've just covered off on the podcast in terms of, I have a philosophy which is called jerfing, just eat real food. Yeah. If you don't recognize an ingredient, don't eat it. It shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
probably be in your body. Try and grow something, not everything, because not every household can do that, but,
Mm-hmm.
some basil on your window ledge that you
Mm-hmm.
just add in
Yeah,
to add some flavor, just to get used to the fact that real food is real. It's,
yeah.
because packet food is so prevalent, as is
Mm-hmm.
ultra processed food. So that whole notion of how do you make lunchboxes more interesting, that is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Where do you get your
Yeah.
energy from? And
Well,
not
to be
energy
fair,
drinks.
no, definitely not energy drinks. No, Helen. I work with amazing people, and Helen is one of those amazing people, and that's what I would say. Surround yourself by by wonderful people who energize you, and ideas just bounce off each other then.
Hmm.
And I'm really lucky that I do work with a really, really wonderful set of a team at
Hmm.
Lincoln and Newark College, but also outside of that as well. And it's surrounding yourself by radiators, isn't it? And that's what makes life
Yes,
fun.
not
Um,
drains.
no, and yeah, I'm really lucky. So they have an idea, we pitch in something else, I pitch something else, and after that, I'm very much a believer in let's try it, let's do it, and let's see if it works. Because we'll just grow
Exactly.
from it. And then if we don't safely risk take, how are we ever going to make change and impact different things in people's lives? We do it in college as well. We host regular community groups where they come into college and our students serve them drinks and cake and talk to them. Now, that energises people who are coming in who, for example, we have a cancer care group who are the family supporting those that are going through cancer. So it's a bit of a respite for them. But actually, what it's doing is improving our students' employability skills. They're having to talk to people. They're having to ask, what do you want to drink? And what did I do today? So it's just a two-way process of working within the community.
I think something that's just standing out to me massively about your entire approach to pretty much everything that I think you do is people are rounded. It's not one dimensional. And I think the education system probably fails on a lot of levels because of this kind of structure. I love the fact that you recognize that social activities are important, that food impacts, that it's not just about being in that classroom. I think it's absolutely amazing,
I,
absolutely incredible.
yeah, I'm a huge advocate for a rounded young person. And my girls went to a school that you're describing that you could only get A stars and go to Oxford and Cambridge. That is not the case at all. My girls
No.
didn't go to Oxford and Cambridge, and they've both got wonderful degrees and jobs, but they're both rounded young people who can talk to anybody, who can make eye contact and have a social impact on their community. And
And
that is
don't drink
really,
any
really important.
and don't have energy drinks for their breakfast.
No, I don't know. I've never seen them with an energy drink, and that isn't me saying no. I don't think.
No, exactly. Okay, I've got two more questions that I ask every
Okay.
guest that comes on the podcast. Obviously,
Okay.
I've met you through work that we've done together in relation to Thermomix,
Hmm.
and you don't have one, which is,
Hmm.
cool. But often people don't understand what it is. So I always ask people to try and describe it to somebody
Hmm.
so that from your perspective. So what would you say
Hmm.
Thermomix is and does?
Well, I have got a sneak peek for that because you were very kind to gift us one to college, which we've been using with the students. So I did take it home to try it,
Okay.
so I knew what to do with them. So I made the most amazing salads that I didn't even think was possible. And chopping carrots, I've never seen chop so quickly. But what it was, what we did with those salads was we trialled them at home and I took them back into work for our staff
Okay.
team to try over a lunch. And they couldn't believe that A, I'd made them, and B, when I told them how it was so easy to make. So what we've started doing now is letting the students make them, but because they make huge batches, don't they, that can
Hmm.
last for days. So what we've bought is those little, like takeaway Chinese
Hmm.
tubs. So they
Hmm.
make a batch, they put them in the Chinese tubs, and we have a fridge in our reception where people can just take food whenever they like. So what we're doing is allowing them to take those vegetables that they don't know that they think they're eating because they didn't like the broccoli and apple salad. They don't like broccoli, they don't
Yeah,
like pepper, and they don't
of
like
course
onion.
not.
But actually, they're eating those salads. So it's all those, and this comes back to parents. What do I give my child? Isn't it? Put it in a different format, mix it all up. It's amazing. And I can't remember the original question. Sorry, I don't know if that answered it or not. I went off track.
Imagine, I guess what I'm saying is imagine you're talking to somebody who goes, a Thermomix, what's that? What would you say?
So what the Thermomix, yeah, I couldn't believe what it can do. And literally, you just put everything in and it does everything for you. So it takes all that chopping, it weighs it, it measures it measures your liquid, it measures everything. It's quite incredible, really. But also, we made, when it was really, really hot, we made some lemonade. So just the quickness of
Hmm.
making some lemons and ice. And the students were like, what on earth is going on? But what better way to give them a really cold drink than that? But what the Thermomix did was you could never do that by hand. You just couldn't do it. Imagine crushing ice on your own. And it did it in
Amazing.
about 4 seconds, I think. It was just incredible. I would say it's an all-in-one mixer, cooker, baker, fastest thing you've ever seen.
Brilliant. Thank you. Final question. You like food, obviously. So if
Hmm.
time wasn't an issue, there were no restrictions in anything that you could get your hands on to cook with, what would be the one meal you would choose to make for you and anyone else that you might want to include?
My favourite meal is lasagna, and
Okay.
it would always be my go-to meal.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
Penny, thank you. Absolutely
my
amazing.
pleasure.
Like I said, I could just talk to you for hours about so many different things. My research brain was just going off on tangents, going, oh my God, but keeping it focused. Thank you so much.
Oh,
And
thank
I'll
you.
see you soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.